The elevator dinged, and I woke up. I looked at the people entering and leaving the elevator in surprise. I was bitten by zombies the last second, but I was standing in the elevator intact at this moment, as if I had returned to the day before the end of the world. 3 minutes later, I confirmed that I was reborn, and I was reborn on the day when the end of the world happened. It is now 9 o'clock in the morning. 6 hours later, that is, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the end of the world will come. I spent another minute to sort out my thoughts. The first thing I did was to call my daughter Duoduo's kindergarten and tell the teacher that I was going to pick her up. On the way to the kindergarten, I contacted my mother-in-law. Mom, please go to the supermarket to buy some rice and flour oil. Buy as much as you can. My mother-in-law asked on the phone, is the city going to be closed again? It's about the same. Go quickly, the sooner the better, but don't tell others, I just heard it through the grapevine. I couldn't explain. I know. We don't spread rumors or make them up. After hanging up the phone, I called my brother Song Yuan, who is a senior in the city. Go to the farmer's market now and buy some shovels, hammers, and various vegetable seeds. Buy whatever you see. Song Yuan wailed over there, sister, my paper's plagiarism check is 45%, I have to work on my paper. Go immediately, I will reimburse you for the plagiarism check fee. Remember, buy the best quality and take a taxi to my place after buying it. Under my coercion and inducement, Song Yuan agreed. If the food we stockpiled cannot support the arrival of the rescue team, we must go out to find food. These things are the best weapons. The next call was to my parents in my hometown, because my father fell down last month and his leg has not healed yet. He will definitely not be able to get here within 6 hours. Fortunately, they returned to the countryside after retirement, where there is enough food, vegetables, and meat, and the house at home is also built solidly and can last for a long time. Finally, I sent a message to my husband Lu Jing, who was in the army. Hubby, you must come to see me. Mom, Duoduo, and I will do our best to wait for you. He was in a closed exercise during this period. When he saw this message, the end of the world should have begun. When we arrived at the kindergarten, the teacher sent Duoduo out. Mom, why do you miss me so soon? Duoduo asked in my arms. Yes, Mom misses my little baby. After 2 years, when I held my daughter's little body again, I couldn't help but shed tears. Duoduo's mom, what's wrong with you? The teacher asked worriedly. I picked up Duoduo. I'm fine, thank you, Teacher Zhou, we're leaving first, take care of yourself. Although I knew the end of the world was coming soon, I couldn't tell anyone, I could only say take care. On the way back, I didn't waste every minute to place orders with the timely delivery app. Perishable vegetables and frozen foods were not in my consideration, because the power would be cut off soon after the end of the world began, and these foods could not be preserved. Ham, vacuum-packed food, bacon, radish, potato, and seaweed are the ones that can be stored for a long time. I did not choose to deliver the goods to the door, but asked them to leave them at the entrance of the community. Such a large amount may arouse suspicion, and someone will definitely come to grab it when there is a food crisis later. After returning home, my mother-in-law also came back with 2 bags of rice and a bucket of oil. She was so tired that she kept hitting her waist. Lon, do you think these are enough? Not enough, far from enough, I have to keep buying. Mom, you stay at home to take care of Duoduo, I'm going out for a while. I found the shopping cart and went out. It's 9:45 in the morning now, I have to hurry. There is a supermarket at the entrance of the community, and I moved boxes of water to the car. For cities, power outages will lead to water outages, especially for those living in high-rise buildings. They may die of thirst before starving to death. In the end, even if there is still food, they have to go out to find water, and most of them die from zombies. I went to the supermarket several times to carry the water back. When I got home, Song Yuan had already arrived. He bought good quality shovels and hammers, and also bought a lot of vegetable seeds. I finally felt a little relieved. Sister, why did you buy so many things? People who don't know would think the end of the world is coming. Don't talk nonsense, go and move our things back to the gate of the community. I still didn't explain. Even if he is my own brother, it would be a waste of time to say anything at this time. Just suppress the blood directly. 12 o'clock, only 3 hours before the end of the world. When I pushed the cart through the gate of the community, the young security guard smiled and greeted, "You almost emptied the supermarket this morning." There were also 2 or 3 owners around looking at me, and I knew I was noticed. Although they were just curious, in the end of the world, this kind of attention would cost lives. In the end of the world, the most terrifying thing is not zombies, but human hearts. I'm going on a business trip for a while. The elderly at home don't know how to buy things, so I stock up more. I made up a reason casually. The security guard didn't ask any more questions. I knew I had to change a supermarket and enter and exit from another gate of the community. I asked Song Yuan to drive to a big supermarket a little further away. After we arrived, I asked Song Yuan to park the car while I went directly to the clothing area. I took as many underwear, panties, socks, and other close-fitting clothes as I could. Once the water supply was cut off, it would be difficult to wash clothes, so I had to keep more in reserve. I also took a waterproof jacket according to our sizes. The climate in the second year of the apocalypse was abnormal, and it rained almost every day. If we ran out of food at that time, we would have to go out to find supplies. I packed up high-power flashlights and batteries of various models. It would be even better if there were solar panels, but this supermarket didn't have them. Fuel is the most needed. Natural gas will be out of service soon after the apocalypse, and we can only rely on these solid and canned fuels to cook. I also took a year's supply of sanitary napkins. Toothpaste and toothbrushes are also indispensable. If these basic hygiene is not done well, it will cause illness and be painful. When Song Yuan came to see me and saw the 3 shopping carts full of things, his eyes widened. "Sister, what happened?" I looked at the time. "You will know in 2.5 hours. At 2 o'clock, the countdown to the end of the world begins." I went out to the pharmacy for the last time, and I took medicine for colds and fevers, anti-infection medicines, medical alcohol gauze, iodine, and various vitamins and nutrients. I took everything I could. Hello, a total of 4,503 yuan. The clerk couldn't stop smiling, and she could get a lot of commission from this order. "Thank you for coming, see you next time," she said happily. I looked at her young and energetic smile and couldn't help being moved. "Goodbye." 2:59. I coaxed Duoduo to sleep, closed the windows, and drew the curtains. My mother-in-law sorted out the supplies in the living room. "Oh, we bought so much that we can't eat it all in a year. It cost a lot of money, right?" I walked to the window and looked downstairs without saying a word. If I had more time, I could buy a generator, enough fuel, solar panels, rainwater collection and filtration system, and even a gun. But I only have 6 hours, so I can only ensure survival supplies first. 3 o'clock. Several shrill screams came from downstairs. Someone was running desperately, but before he could run a few steps, he was knocked down by people covered in blood. Those people were biting the living people under them horribly, like wild beasts. The patrolling security guards in the community wanted to call the police in fear, but they were drowned by countless living dead in the next second. The end of the world came as expected, without a delay. Those who were bitten to death slowly stood up, with their heads drooping, and their bodies walked forward like puppets. When they met living people, they violently pounced on them. The screams filled the sky above the entire community, and the air was full of blood. "Oh my God!" My mother-in-law screamed and fainted after seeing it. Song Yuan was trembling when he spoke. "Sister, you bought so many things because of this?" "Yes, the end of the world is here." I helped my mother-in-law to the sofa, and told them about my rebirth after she recovered. In the last life, Duoduo, Granny, and Song Yuan were all infected and turned into zombies in the early stage. I was able to escape, because I was driving at the time. Granny kept crying. The old lady had never seen such a terrible thing. She was worried about her son in the army and our family. "Mom, Lu Jing and his men are well equipped. He will be fine. In the last life, I met Lu Jing in the safe zone a year after the end of the world. But we can't be together often. He is a soldier. It is his duty to protect the lives and safety of the people. He fights on the front line every day. Later, when he was on a mission, the safe zone encountered a wave of zombies. Although we fought desperately, the safe zone still fell. I was reborn and didn't know what the fate of others was. 10 minutes later, the news began to be broadcast on TV. The police, firefighters, and armed police were quickly dispatched. The government reminded everyone to stay at home and never go out. I made a video call to my parents in my hometown. Lon Lon, you must not go out. Something big has happened. My parents were very worried about us over there. I know, Mom and Dad, you should protect yourselves too. I felt bad. Although I knew that my parents would live well in another safe zone, I still missed them so much. Don't cry, my daughter, Yuan, you are a man, you have to protect your sister, Duoduo, and aunt, understand? My father solemnly told Song Yuan. Although Song Yuan was still in a state of shock, he still held the hammer tightly in his hand. Mom and Dad, don't worry, I will, you should take care of yourself too. There were sporadic gunshots outside. It was the police who fired, but I knew that this level of firepower could not control the situation at all. The virus broke out collectively all over the world on this day. No one knew how the virus appeared and why it spread all over the world at the same time. Even when I died, it was an unsolved mystery. Some people said that this was a punishment from God, a cleansing of mankind by God. Duoduo was awakened by the sound outside and burst into tears. I held her in my arms and gently coaxed her, don't be afraid, Mom is here. The little girl curled up in my arms and slowly stopped crying. Don't let the child see what's outside. The mother-in-law pulled the curtains tightly. She will have to accept all this sooner or later. The flowers in the greenhouse cannot resist the natural cold, and I will not cover Duoduo's eyes to see this cruel world. After Duoduo calmed down, I checked the doors and windows and began to organize the supplies. Song Yuan helped me, and the frightened mother-in-law stayed with Duoduo in the bedroom. About half an hour later, there were messy footsteps from outside the door. I immediately picked up a shovel and stood by the door. Song Yuan also picked up a hammer and followed me nervously. Wife, open the door quickly. It was the voice of the neighbor Zhou's husband. I looked out through the cat's eye and saw that the man's clothes had been torn and there were several wounds on his arms, some of which were so deep that the bones could be seen. He was infected and would soon become a zombie. Don't open it. I immediately stopped him loudly, but it was too late. The door was opened with a click, and the man rushed in. Soon, Zhou's terrifying and shrill screams came from inside, and a sound similar to the swallowing of a beast. I have long been accustomed to such scenes, but Song Yuan experienced it for the first time. His face was pale, but he did not run away and stayed by my side. The little tail that followed me when I was a child is now my backer. I opened the door without hesitation and walked over. While Sister Zhou has not yet transformed into a zombie, I just want to deal with them, otherwise there will be endless troubles. Sister. Song Yuan grabbed me in fear. It's okay, I know my limits. In the past, I was spoiled by my parents and my husband, and I couldn't carry anything on my shoulders or hands. But after 2 years of struggling in the apocalypse, I, who used to cry when encountering things, also had the courage and strength to kill zombies. I walked in and saw that the couple who were usually harmonious were now covered in blood and their bodies were broken into pieces. The man's gray eyes looked at me. The breath of the living would make the zombies attack continuously, and only the broken head could stop their actions. When he was about to pounce on me, I smashed his head neatly, then dealt with Sister Zhou who was transforming, and then came out to close the door. Song Yuan looked at me in shock at the door. I walked past him and closed the fire door in the stairwell, to prevent the zombies from other floors from coming in. We returned home and closed the door and propped it with heavy objects. From now on, we would not easily step out of the door before the food and water ran out. Song Yuan sat on the sofa without saying a word. He was obviously frightened by the ruthlessness of my killing zombies just now. After all, I have always been a delicate and timid sister in his heart. Don't be afraid of me. I will never hurt you, I said to him. Song Yuan hugged me and shook his head. Sister, I am not afraid of you. I just find it hard to imagine what you have experienced in the past. I patted his back. It's just a nightmare. At night, the city was full of flames and some areas had already started to lose power. The sirens stopped blaring, the gunshots stopped ringing, and the streets were full of zombies wandering aimlessly. There was still electricity in our community. I opened the curtains and looked into the community. Half of the lights were on in the entire community, and heart-wrenching cries came from time to time. Today is a working day, people go to work and go to school, but many people will never be able to go home. In the news, the government is constantly encouraging everyone to persevere and wait for rescue. I checked the information on my mobile phone over and over again. Just like in my previous life, Lu Jing still couldn't be contacted. That night, I filled all the containers in the house with water, charged my mobile phone and power bank. Song Yuan kept watch, and Duoduo, my mother-in-law, and I rested first. But none of us could sleep, waiting for the arrival of the next day in the dark, the second day of the apocalypse. I woke up early and let Song Yuan rest. The water and electricity have not been cut off, and the gas can still be used, but I don't know how long it will last. After I made breakfast and ate a few bites, I looked at the information on the internet. The short videos were all about zombies eating people, and there were even brave ones broadcasting live. I looked for news about whether the rescue team had entered the city, but just like in my previous life, they did not show up. This is not because they did not act quickly, but because the combatants were also infected and turned into zombies in large numbers in the early stage. The government has also tried to use weapons of mass destruction to clear out zombies, but the result is that even if a lot of zombies are killed, as long as there is still one zombie, a large area will be infected again in a short period of time. Finally, the command center gave up the rescue and concentrated all its efforts on building a safe zone to provide shelter for the survivors. 10 o'clock in the morning. Several armed helicopters flew over in the sky, and machine guns sprayed flames and shot the zombies on the ground. After the bullets were used up, the planes flew away and never came back. They may have realized that the zombies could not be killed at all. The community downstairs had long lost the liveliness of yesterday. Dozens of zombies were wandering below, and no living people were seen. I planted vegetables quickly while the water was still there. Radishes and cabbages grow fast, and tender seedlings can be eaten in about 20 days. Other vegetables, like cucumbers, peppers, and eggplants, will take longer. When I bought the house, I fell in love with this 28-story rooftop with a terrace at first sight. It is said that the rooftop leaks, the water pressure is low, and it is inconvenient to wait for the elevator to go out, but I like sunshine and fresh air. At that time, my plan was to plant a gorgeous garden and wait for Lu Jing to come back. I never thought that one day I would use it as a vegetable garden. My mother-in-law and Duoduo also came to help. I told Duoduo not to speak loudly, and Duoduo followed my instructions. She looked at the zombies walking downstairs curiously. Mom, why don't they go home? In the eyes of children, they don't know what life and death are. I touched her head. Because they have a serious infectious disease, they can't go home. If you see patients like them in the future, you must hide immediately and not be infected, otherwise you can't go home, understand? Duoduo nodded. I know. In the evening, my parents called me via video, and they were relieved to see that we were still alive. I'm going to modify the car at home and bring your mom to find you. My dad said seriously. Don't do it, Dad will build a safe zone over there, you just stay where you are. How did you know? I had to explain the rebirth briefly, but my dad didn't believe it at all, and firmly believed that Lu Jing had revealed the news to me. But after much persuasion, he finally gave up the idea of coming to us. On the third day of the apocalypse, the power went out. The Wi-Fi is down, so I can only use mobile data. Lu Jing still didn't reply to the message. I continued to leave him a message to explain our situation and told him that we would stay at home for about a year. If there is no rescue by then, we will set out to the east to find a safe zone. A year later, the safe zone in the east will be completed and the security will be relatively complete. At that time, we can avoid many detours. In the last life, he didn't see the message I left for him because of the communication failure, and it is probably the same in this life. But my real purpose is not entirely to express my feelings. I have other purposes for these messages. If there is a future, I hope they can come in handy. Duoduo wants to eat poached eggs, my mother-in-law is busy in the kitchen, Song Yuan is observing this situation outside, and I went back to my room to catch up on sleep because I was very sleepy after staying up all night. When I woke up, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Duoduo was painting in the living room, my mother-in-law was still in the kitchen, and the smell of stewed meat wafted out. I immediately rushed over to turn off the fire. Mom, don't make something so fragrant, others will smell it. My mother-in-law looked at me in surprise, so what if they smell it? People always have to eat, and the power outage will make the meat go bad if they don't eat it quickly. It's okay now, but when someone else can't stand it anymore, we will be in danger. I have seen with my own eyes that hungry people are more ferocious than zombies, and they will do everything they can to grab food. At that time, morality and law were not worth mentioning, and the evil side of human nature was exposed. Those bad memories made my body tremble involuntarily. I think I must have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. My mother-in-law also understood, and touched my face with her warm hands. My son, how much suffering has been endured. I gradually calmed down and smiled at my mother-in-law. It's okay, it's over. Although I may face all that again in the future, I am no longer afraid. My family is my source of strength. There are many more zombies in the community, and this place has become a zombie kingdom. On the 4th day of the apocalypse, the water stopped. We stopped taking showers and simply wiped our bodies with clean water. We used the simple toilet we bought to collect excrement and garbage for centralized treatment. The weather began to get hot, and the air was full of the smell of decay. Soon the plague would break out, and many people who survived the first day would slowly die of the disease. We put on masks and sprayed disinfectant at home. From today on, we will take vitamins and exercise every day to improve our immunity and try not to get sick. Sure, on the 5th day, the cell phone signal became intermittent, and at night there was no signal at all, and we lost contact with the outside world. On the 6th day of the apocalypse, a large number of rescuers appeared on the other side of the river, but when crossing the bridge, they were blocked by tens of thousands of zombies. In the end, they had to blow up the bridge to evacuate. I stood on the terrace holding Duoduo and watched all this. In the thick smoke, Duoduo asked me, "Mom, is Dad here to save us?" I nodded. Although Luzhin was not inside, they went to a more severe place at that time. I just wanted Duoduo to be full of hope. After all, we still have a year to survive. On the 7th day of the apocalypse, there was no gas. In the morning, I was awakened by the sound of a car driving. I opened the curtains and saw a black car running over the zombies all the way to the supermarket door. A well-dressed man got off the car and ran into the supermarket. After a while, he came out holding a few cans of milk powder. He was very fast, like a sprinter, but the zombies who came after hearing the noise still surrounded and drowned him. When the zombies dispersed, only the cans of milk powder stained with blood were left on the ground. Adults can endure hunger, but babies can't. Children are the apple of their parents' eyes. Parents are willing to take risks even if they know they may die in order to keep their children alive. Many people were looking at the man like me. The scene just now made many people who wanted to go to the supermarket to move food give up the idea. I'm glad that I became a zombie very early in my last life. Song Yuan sighed. I replied, "You won't get what you want in this life." Suddenly, the sound of a drone sounded nearby, and I immediately pulled Song Yuan back to the house. The drone was hovering in the community. Someone was observing the situation in the community. It circled around and flew away. I looked at the direction it landed, right in our community. I didn't sleep that night. I felt that something was going to happen soon. On the 10th day of the apocalypse, it rained heavily. The four of us moved all the pots and pans out to collect rainwater. I used the small stones and soil and gauze that I had used to pave the garden to make a simple filter. The filtered water can be used for washing and cooking. The cabbage and radish planted on the terrace are already 3 or 4 centimeters high. After this rain, their growth will be much faster. The rain stopped in the afternoon, and the stench was also reduced. We have been wearing masks during this period, and today we can finally take them off to breathe. Song Yuan and I are filtering water, Duoduo is playing with the little snail, and my mother-in-law is busy preparing dinner. Everything seems to have returned to the happy days 10 days ago. Now the gas has stopped, and we can only use the fuel we bought before to cook. In order to save fuel, the meals are also very simple, basically just adding some oil to cook. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a cooking expert, and she can make the meals delicious with such a simple method. However, the drone sounded again. This time, a small speaker was tied to the drone, and a woman's voice came from it, who has extra food. I am willing to exchange it for Hermes. Someone else opened the window, I am willing to exchange it for a Mercedes. I have another house in this community. I am willing to exchange it for a bag of rice. Just a bag of rice will do. No one answered them. Now everyone knows that food is the most precious. The drone flew back again, and soon there were sounds of smashing and someone started to pry the door. A couple was rummaging in the house, but they went to empty houses to search. With their lead, others began to follow suit. There were sounds of smashing doors and rummaging in the community. There was also a lot of noise in our building. It seemed that there were quite a lot of people. Now, because of the access control, the zombies can't get in for the time being, but I don't know how long they can last. Soon, I heard someone opening the fire door on my floor. They wanted to search for things on this floor. The fire door was closed and solid, and I blocked it with something. It was not easy for them to get in. There must be someone else in our building. I smelled the smell of stewed meat a few days ago. A man's voice came. Fuck, why is this door so strong? Another man was knocking on the door. On the day when the virus broke out, I saw a woman buying a lot of things and transporting them in trucks. Now I think it seems that she is from our building, maybe the one on the top floor. It seems that there are only 2 women and a child in this family, no men. I was seen after all. I held the shovel in my hand tightly. If they broke in, I would fight to the death. Their voices alarmed the zombies downstairs. The zombies rushed to the door control, and the 2 had to leave first and hide in the house. After they left, my mother-in-law blamed herself, I shouldn't have stewed meat that day. I comforted her, it's okay, it's all over, there are many uncertainties in the end of the world. Because of the appearance of those 2 people, my mother-in-law and Song Yuan began to strengthen their exercise, so that they could resist if someone came to rob things. Especially my mother-in-law, a strong woman all her life, she was still gesturing with a kitchen knife at the age of 60, vowing to protect us. 20 I accompanied Duoduo to draw and read stories. I wanted to make up for the 2 years I had lost. After this search, the community was quiet for a while. The survivors I met in the previous life told me that at first everyone was afraid of zombies and didn't dare to do anything, but later they were so hungry and thirsty that they just gave it a try. The 20th day of the apocalypse. Many people hung out cloths with help messages outside their windows. After so many days, even if there was food, there was definitely not enough water. I counted the water in my house. We consumed a lot of water because we cooked and drank a lot of water in the hot weather. Now there are still 24 boxes of mineral water left. There is still 1 bucket of rainwater that was filtered before. If we use it sparingly, it should last for 2 or 3 months. It will be the rainy season then, and the water shortage will be alleviated. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a rescue helicopter dropped supplies to the building that was asking for help. The government did not give up and was also actively rescuing. The survivors cheered, but they fought hard to get more water and food. The helicopter came every day for the next 3 days, because it flew low, I could see the pilot. Don't be afraid, everyone. As long as my comrades and I are still alive, we will definitely send you food. The pilot comforted everyone. It sounded like a very young girl, a few years younger than me, and her tone was full of firm responsibility and belief. But after that day, she and her plane never appeared again. Mom, why didn't that sister come today? Duoduo looked up at the sky expectantly. She may have gone to another place. A paradise without zombies. The 30th day of the apocalypse. The cabbage seedlings we planted can be used for stir-frying. The radish seedlings can be boiled in water and then mixed with cold salad. There will not be too much smoke. We finally have green vegetables to eat. Many people's food and drinking water have reached the limit. In order to survive, they risked going to the supermarket to find supplies. Some died and some successfully snatched back supplies, but the food in the supermarket was also limited and could not last long. Some people drove out of the area to find life. I saw some people were surrounded by zombies like a tide as soon as they drove out of the basement. There were also others who broke through the layers of obstacles, successfully left the zombies behind, and ran towards the distant hope. The 50th day of the apocalypse. It finally rained, although it was only a drizzle. We used basins and buckets to collect rainwater carefully. I made a rainwater collector with mineral water bottles during this period, which can speed up the collection of rainwater. Song Yuan's hair has grown a lot, and my mother-in-law is helping him cut his hair with scissors. Halfway through the haircut, the fire door in the stairwell was banged again, and those people came. Open the door, I know there are people on your floor. Hide, right? I will kill them when I go in. If they are willing to share food with us, don't kill them. It was a woman's voice. Then I heard a heavy slap in the face, shut up. The woman was beaten as if she fell down the stairs, and then her voice was gone. Duoduo was so scared that she hid in my arms. My mother-in-law and Song Yuan both picked up their weapons and stared at the door. I gave up the shovel I usually used and turned to the kitchen to get a boning knife. With a loud bang, the fire door was knocked open, and soon the door to the corridor was also knocked open. The chaotic footsteps rushed into the corridor. I signaled my mother-in-law and Song Yuan not to make a sound. There should be 3 or 4 people listening to the footsteps. They first smashed the door of the neighbor's house. After the door was smashed open, a foul smell rushed out, and then they screamed. They must have been frightened by the bodies of the neighbor's couple. They thought there were zombies on this floor and fled downstairs frantically. Such a movement attracted the attention of the zombies downstairs. The door control was knocked open, and the zombies rushed in. I heard the screams of those people, and in less than 10 seconds, only the low howls of the zombies were left. Once the zombies bite those people to death, they will come to attack us. Now the fire door is broken and it is too late to repair it. I immediately took a few cloves, cut my palm and sprinkled blood on it, then wrapped a few heavy objects in it and threw them downstairs. The zombies who smelled the blood were indeed attracted out. Mom, if you see zombies coming up, just keep throwing cloves. After giving instructions, I picked up 2 shovels and a battery car lock to check the damage of the fire door, and Song Yuan stood guard beside me. Thank God, although the fire door was knocked open, the door frame was not damaged, and the door leaf could still be closed, only the lock was broken. I saw a woman lying on the steps dying, skinny, and she seemed to be Duoduo's classmate's mother in my memory. Song Yuan, come and help. We lifted her up, then pinned the fire door with a shovel, and locked the other door with the battery car lock. These measures are definitely not as good as the original door, but they can also resist for a while. After returning home, we moved the cabinets and tables to block the door. After waiting for a long time, we didn't see the zombies coming up, and we were slightly relieved. The woman also woke up at this time, but I could see that she didn't have much time left. I fed her some sugar water, and her pale face had some color. I fed her some noodles, but she shook her head. Keep it for yourself, don't waste it, I can't do it anymore. Then she looked at me. I'm sorry, we wanted to hurt you, but you saved me. I sighed. You didn't hurt me, no need to apologize. She looked at Duoduo again. Duoduo, do you still remember me? I'm Yao Yao's mother. Duoduo nodded. Hello, Auntie. What was Yao Yao doing when you left on your last day? Duoduo thought seriously, drinking milk. Drinking milk, that's good. She smiled, but a tear slid down her eyes. She left in the early morning and jumped off the terrace while we were asleep. I can understand her behavior. At the beginning of the end of the world, when I saw Duoduo being infected as a zombie from the mobile phone monitoring, I also planned to follow her. Because it was hot, my wound was a little inflamed and caused a low fever. After taking anti-inflammatory drugs, I slept for 2 days. After waking up, Song Yuan told me that according to his observation, there were no other living people in the entire community except us. But we still spoke in a low voice, trying not to make any noise, neither attracting zombies nor attracting the attention of others. The 120th day of the apocalypse. We still have 2/3 of our food, and vegetables can keep up. The only trouble is the shortage of water. The rainy season that was originally expected did not appear. Something seems to be quietly changing, but fortunately, except for my infection and fever, the rest of the time, the 4 of us were very healthy and did not get sick. On the 200th day of the apocalypse, snow fell from the sky, and the drinking water crisis was temporarily resolved. But it snowed in January in the last life, and it snowed 2 months earlier in this life. We had no heating, so we could only wrap ourselves tightly and keep warm by shaking. This day was also Lu Zheng's 32nd birthday. Early in the morning, my mother-in-law took Lu Zheng's photo and missed him silently, and I sat over to accompany her. Lu Zheng in the photo had sword eyebrows and star eyes, and a righteous face. He is the person I am most familiar with and closest to, the person who is farthest from me, and the pillar that keeps me alive when I am most desperate. Will I really see Xing'er next May? My mother-in-law asked me. I nodded, yes. If there are no accidents along the way. In my previous life, I arrived at the safe zone in July, and the safe zone was basically built in May. There are elite troops stationed in it, and hundreds of thousands of survivors live there. There are more than 300 such safe zones across the country, which greatly preserves the vitality of mankind. Since the safe zone is under construction, why don't we leave now? Wouldn't it be a good opportunity to meet my brother-in-law when we get there? Song Yuan asked me. I looked at the heavy snow outside. In this weather, if the car breaks down, we are likely to freeze to death. The 295th day of the apocalypse is the Lunar New Year. From the first snow to the present 3 months, the snow has hardly stopped. In the cold weather, the stench has been reduced a lot, and the activities of the zombies have slowed down. They are like sculptures in the snow. Although there is less than 1/3 of the food left, we decided to be extravagant today for the new year. We fried a large plate of green peppers and bacon, unpacked the vacuum-packed braised duck, made a soup with seaweed, and then opened the last bottle of Coke to celebrate. Happy New Year! We toasted quietly to celebrate that we were still alive. After finishing the New Year's Eve dinner, we had just cleaned up the table when we heard the sound of cars, gunshots, and explosions outside. I looked out the window and saw 7 or 8 modified and reinforced cars parked at the entrance of the supermarket. Some people were holding guns to block the zombies, and some people rushed into the supermarket to look for supplies. They have guns, but they don't look like soldiers. Song Yuan said vigilantly. I saw at a glance that they were not. The vehicles, weapons, and equipment were not military configurations. It should be that the survivors formed a team to survive. As for the guns and ammunition, they might have been hidden before the end of the world, or they might have been picked up or made after the end of the world. These people are very dangerous. After searching the supermarket, those people only found a small part of the supplies and sat in the car cursing and yelling. Some people looked at us and whispered to each other. Our community is the closest to the supermarket. Maybe they thought we still have supplies. The car drove over. They searched one building after another. Soon they came to our building. My heart was in my throat. The access control is broken. Every house has been broken open. The rice bags are cleaner than the face. It seems that someone came before us. Let's go to the next building. A group of people left in a mighty manner. We escaped. If we were found by them, even if they didn't kill us, it would be difficult for us to survive without food and water. The access control problem that I was most worried about at the time saved our lives now. On the 330th day of the apocalypse, the peach blossoms in the community bloomed, scorching brightly. The rescue team has not appeared, and we began to prepare to go to the safe zone. The most important things to go to the safe zone are vehicles and gasoline. Song Yuan and I went to the underground garage to check the vehicle first, and there was no problem with the vehicle. As for the fuel, I used the hose used to water the flowers to suck the oil from other cars into a large mineral water bottle for storage. Although the oil quality has been bad for such a long time, it can still be used. During this period, several zombies appeared in the basement, but they were all solved by Song Yuan and I. It was the first time for Song Yuan to kill a zombie, and he vomited for a long time before he recovered. On the 335th day of the apocalypse, it was sunny. We took all the water, food, medicine, and weapons, took a last look at this home and left to go to another life and death gamble. I know that even if we arrive at the safe zone safely, there will be a shocking wave of corpses waiting for us, but I will do everything I can to reverse the ending of the previous life. If I fail, I will see the one I love, my daughter will see her father, and my mother-in-law will see her son. It is the best arrangement of God that our family can be reunited before dying. The abandoned vehicles on the road blocked our way, but now we don't have to obey traffic rules or care about public facilities. I just drove out. The zombies who heard the noise chased after the car, but were soon thrown away by me. The route ahead was planned on the map based on my memory of escaping in the previous life. Although it is the fastest to take the highway to the safe zone in the east, there must be abandoned vehicles on it, and there are wilderness on both sides of the road. It is difficult to move forward, so I chose to take the national highway. But now the most difficult thing is to leave the city. There are the most abandoned cars in the city, and zombies are also concentrated. I followed the route that the gunman left last time. Since their cars can leave, ours can definitely leave. Sure enough, my guess was right. Those people opened a road. The city was empty and terribly quiet, with human skeletons and garbage scattered everywhere. The originally spacious and clean roads had grown weeds, and wild animals appeared from time to time. There were very few zombies, because there were no living people in the city. Zombies only chased the breath of living people, and the safe areas with the most living people were the ones that caused the zombie tide. The nearby zombies chased the vehicles that surrounded us, and I stepped on the accelerator and ran over their bodies. 2 hours later, we finally got out of the city without any danger. There was a lot of open space outside the city, and the view was wider, and there were flowers all over the mountains and fields. I couldn't help but think of a poem. The cliff is already 100 feet of ice, only the branches are beautiful. We traveled during the day and rested at night, and Song Yuan and I took turns on duty. But even so, we took 4 days to walk the distance that should have taken 5 or 6 hours to get out of the province, because many sections were blocked by vehicles, resulting in many detours. On the 3rd day after departure, it started to rain, and we relied on the compass on Song Yuan's watch to determine the direction and continue forward. The further east you go, the more mountains there are, especially in the western part of Jiangxi. The mountains stretch as far as you can see, and the lush trees are covered with a veil under the mist and rain of Jiangnan. Zombies are rarely seen in this area, and there are not many abandoned vehicles on the road. We drove quietly on the road, as if passing through a paradise. We stopped at a gas station. The oil we brought was almost exhausted, and there were not many vehicles on the road to find oil, so we could only rely on the gas station. The glass of this gas station was broken all over the ground, and the supplies on the shelves were also emptied. There were footprints on the ground, which should be someone who had been here recently. "Is there any oil?" Song Yuan asked. I shook my head and walked to the oil unloading port to open the manhole cover. This is where the oil storage tank is located. It is very likely that there is still oil in the tank. This is the experience I learned from my teammates who worked at the gas station in my previous life. Song Yuan and I took a lot of effort to open the oil valve, and then put the hose in. I took a strong sip, and the brown liquid came up along the hose. There was indeed oil. When we were getting the gas, my mother-in-law took Duoduo out of the car. "Mom, you guys go back to the car," I said quickly. Although we didn't see many zombies here, we couldn't take it lightly. My mother-in-law held Duoduo. Duoduo is carsick and vomited. "I'll take her down to get some fresh air." I walked over to take the child. The little girl was very pale. There are many winding mountain roads in this area. We adults can still bear it, but it's hard for children to bear it. "Then let's go to the gas station to rest first." As soon as we left the car, we heard a loud noise on the mountain. Several rocks rolled down and hit the car. The continuous rain caused a landslide. If my mother-in-law didn't take Duoduo down, I couldn't imagine the consequences. "Oh, my dear grandson saved our lives. Thank the mountain god for protection and thank the Bodhisattva for blessing." My mother-in-law knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the mountain devoutly. I looked at this silent empty mountain, and the snowy mountains also overlooked me. Perhaps all this is really destined by God. The car was smashed, so we could only walk forward. I expected the car to break down, but I didn't expect it to be this kind of breakdown. I counted the supplies and found that there was still about a week's worth of food, but walking would consume a lot of energy, and might make us eat faster. Song Yuan found a cart from the gas station. We put Duoduo and some supplies in it, and then put on cold-proof jackets and raincoats. In the last life, this rain lasted for about half a year. After walking for 3 days, we finally saw a sign that said there were still 100 kilometers to Dongjiang. After reaching Dongjiang, we were very close to the safe zone, but this also meant that there would be more and more zombies. We still had to find a car. I also saw a lot of vehicles along the way, but they were all damaged and couldn't be started, so I planned to look for them in the village. Maybe there were some that could be used. However, as soon as we entered the village, we saw signs of human activity, so we retreated immediately, but we were still discovered. More than 20 men and women surrounded us. They had guns and knives in their hands. Our food, gasoline, raincoats, jackets, shovels, and hammers were all taken away. They didn't kill us, but they didn't allow us to stay in the village, leaving us to fend for ourselves. We would not survive long after losing everything in such a harsh environment. "You can't hold out here for long, how about we make an exchange?" I said to the leading man. The man looked at me with disdain. "What can you exchange?" I took out Lu Zhang's photo. "My husband is a soldier. He contacted me and said that they are now building a safe zone with sufficient supplies. I can take you to that place, but the condition is that you must ensure our safety." The man was very cautious. "Communication has been interrupted for a long time." "Why should I believe you?" I replied, "Although the communication has been interrupted, the radio can still be used. I used the car radio to contact my husband, but my car was smashed by a landslide at the gas station. Otherwise, I can give you evidence." This is what I lied to them, but I am not completely lying. After the safe zone is built, notifying survivors to take refuge through radio broadcasts is one of the ways, but this step has not yet begun. "Captain, you can't believe her words. She may have accomplices. We must never suffer the losses we suffered before." His companions talked in unison. Among these people, I heard a familiar man's voice. Looking at the sound, it turned out to be the gas station employee in the previous life. "Zhang Yu, it's great that you're here." I looked at him in surprise. Although this 22-year-old boy has a bad temper, he is kind-hearted. Zhang Yu was stunned for a moment. "Do you know me?" I replied, "Before the virus broke out, I often refueled at your place." "Have you forgotten? I remember you were from the gas station on Qingyan Road, right? You often gave me mineral water. This is my daughter Duoduo. Do you remember?" "Duoduo, call me uncle." In fact, I didn't know Zhang Yu at the beginning of my last life. He told me all this information after we became teammates. "Uncle." Duoduo called carefully. Zhang Yu saw that I could accurately tell him his information, and his eyes gradually became less vigilant. The people around him couldn't help but be moved when they heard Duoduo's voice. Many of them are also parents. Now most of their children are gone, and they will be moved when they see Duoduo. I struck while the iron was hot. Please believe me, I will never harm you. If I didn't take you to the safe zone, you can be killed or cut up at that time. Captain, why don't you trust her once? Anyway, we are outnumbered now, and we are not afraid. Zhang Yu finally stood on my side. The man looked at the photo in my hand again. Is your husband really a soldier? I swear to God. I raised my hand. My son is an upright soldier, I swear to God. My mother-in-law also raised her hand. The man pondered for a while. Then I will trust you once, you'd better not lie to me. After a night's rest, we set off early in the morning. They returned the clothes that were robbed, and the food was shared by everyone. Everyone ate it voraciously. It can be seen that they have been hungry for a long time. Fortunately, they have a car and oil, so the road behind will be much faster. Before setting off, the captain led people to kill a few zombies and smeared their blood on the car after they died. He said that this can cover up some of the breath of the living. The convoy set off under my guidance. Our family of 4 was asked to sit separately. Duoduo and I sat in the captain's car, while my mother-in-law and Song Yuan sat with Zhang Yu. The zombies we encountered along the way were indeed slow to react to the convoy. 3 hours later, we finally arrived at the border of Dongjiang without any danger. The safe zone is in Longwan City, and it is still 800 or 900 miles from here. I spread out the map to show them the route. Why build the safe zone in Longwan? Why not build it directly in the provincial capital? Some people didn't understand. I explained, because places like Longwan are places where our country built war preparedness a long time ago. There are refineries, steel mills, and cement plants. These are important resources for resuming production and providing armaments. They listened with half belief. Many young people have not heard of the term war preparedness construction. Only the slightly older captain nodded slightly. There will be more zombies ahead. I suggest checking the vehicle first, otherwise we will be in danger if the vehicle breaks down. I continued. The captain listened to my advice. He arranged some people to check the car and others to look for food. After a simple meal, the convoy continued on its way. As expected, there were more and more zombies on the road. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The zombie blood smeared on the car had been washed away. The zombies began to besiege us. We avoided them if we could, and we could only fight them head-on if we couldn't. In this situation, people were constantly injured and infected. When we were still 100 miles away from Longwan City, there were only 19 people left out of the original 27. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't have lost so many people. Someone couldn't bear it and attacked me. Song Yuan stood in front of me and said angrily, "If we hadn't told you about the safe zone, your ending in that small village would have been death. You want to live but don't want to pay. There is no such good thing in the world." Seeing that they were about to fight, the captain stopped those people. "Enough, it's useless to say more now. If we don't see the safe zone in Longwan, we will settle the account again." The convoy continued to move forward. The weather was gray and the visibility was not high, but I became more and more familiar with the surrounding environment. We are almost at the safe zone. It will take at most half an hour. My voice was trembling. "Mom, will we be able to see Dad soon?" Duoduo asked in a low voice. I nodded. "Yes, we will see him soon." As soon as the voice fell, the captain braked suddenly. I looked up and saw hundreds of zombies in front of us. They stood in the rain, their gray eyes looking at us coldly. "Retreat, retreat immediately!" the captain yelled. But it was too late. Zombies were everywhere and had surrounded us. I was unwilling to die here. I glanced around and saw a 3-story building nearby. Get out of the car and go upstairs to fight a defensive battle. We have guns. The safe zone will definitely come to rescue us when they hear the gunshots. I opened the car door and jumped down with Duoduo in my arms. Others also got out of the car, shooting and retreating. Zombies surged like a tide. We fled to the building and blocked the door with a shovel, and then moved all the furniture to hold the door tightly. Everyone gathered on the third floor and shot at the zombies below from the window, but the zombies would only die if they were hit in the head, so blind shooting would not have much effect. Song Yuan and Zhang Yu carried the remaining gasoline and poured it down, then set it on fire. The zombies were burned, but because of the rain, the flames gradually extinguished and turned into a pungent burnt smell. The door on the first floor was knocked open by the zombies, followed by the second floor. We stayed on the third floor, the zombies' voices were right beside our ears, and we stacked up against the last door. I prayed to God, praying that the defenders in the safe zone could hear our gunshots, and praying that Lu Jing would come to us quickly. Time seemed to stop, everything was slowly stretching, and everyone seemed to have entered a long and dark tunnel, not knowing when they would see the light. Gradually, I seemed to hear the sound of a helicopter, and it sounded like thunder, but I was not sure. Did you hear the sound of a flying plane? I asked. Everyone quieted down and pricked up their ears. The rumbling sound came from far away and got closer. Before we could confirm it, we saw flames flashing angrily outside the window, and the zombies downstairs were beaten to pieces. It's an armed helicopter, 3 in total. There is really a safe zone here. We are saved. Someone cried, crying with joy of rebirth. The helicopter flew around again and again, bullets passed through the zombies, and zombies fell down in large numbers. There were combat vehicles parked downstairs, and gunshots rang out densely. Fully armed combat personnel approached step by step. In the face of this absolute firepower coverage, the remaining zombies were quickly cleared. The door was opened, and the combat personnel came in with guns on guard. If anyone among us was infected, they would kill without mercy. They all wore black masks on their faces, revealing only eagle-like sharp eyes. But even under such a tight wrap, I still saw the familiar eyes at a glance. Lu Jing. I called him, and then my eyes went black and I fell down. I felt my body become very light, like a cloud floating up to the sky, with golden light shining on me from the sky, warm and sleepy. When I was floating in the air, I suddenly heard Duoduo crying below. I immediately looked down and found that there was another me on the ground. The me on the ground closed my eyes, pale, and was held in Lu Jing's arms. Duoduo was crying on the side, my mother-in-law was anxious and at a loss, and Song Yuan was about to pinch my Rinzhong. I finally realized that my soul was out of my body. Was I going to die? No, I can't die. I survived the panic spring, summer, autumn and winter, traveled thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, and on the 355th day of the last world, I brought my family here to reunite with Lu Jing 3 months earlier than in the last life. I must not die like this. Moreover, I haven't told Lu Jing about the corpse tide yet. So I struggled to throw myself into Lu Jing's arms. I wanted to return to my body. When I woke up again, I was already in the white ward. Lu Jing was sitting next to me, adjusting the infusion device. Seeing me awake, he reached out and touched my forehead. Awake, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Where are Mom and Duoduo? What happened to me? They just left to rest. You are a bit anemic. Sleep a little longer. The doctor said you probably haven't had a good sleep for a long time. The doctor was right. In my last life and this life, I didn't sleep well all night. The slightest noise, even the sound of the wind, could wake me up. Go and do your work. I knew he had a heavy responsibility and didn't want to waste his time. He held my hand. You were having nightmares when you were unconscious just now. I'll stay with you for a while. I stared at him in a daze, thinking back to the last life we lived here for almost a year, but because we lost our family and children, we were usually silent and didn't talk much, and rarely had such close times. Even if we wanted to have another child later, we gave up halfway because we were too sad. At that time it was not just the two of us, but most other couples were like this, all immersed in an inextricable sadness. I felt the warmth of his palm. Lu Jing, I did it. What did you do? He asked. I replied, when we got married, I told you, you promised the country, I promised you, I will protect our little home. Now I have done it. He nodded and tucked the corner of the quilt for me. Thank you. I fell asleep peacefully, and vaguely heard him say, Song Lan, thank you for saving me too. I slept peacefully for 12 hours without any nightmares. After waking up, Lu Jing and I went to the rest area to meet my mother-in-law and others. The rest area is full of survivors, and there are about 10,000 people now. Song Yuan was in the men's rest area. He and the captain had signed up as volunteers on the spot and were currently responsible for the logistics of the safe zone. I charged my phone and turned it on again, looking at the message I sent to Lu Jing at that time. From now on, I will try to reverse the ending of my previous life. Lu Jing, I'm reborn. I told him directly and handed the phone to him. This is the message I sent you before the end of my life. I knew all this would happen, so I was prepared for survival. I also knew that Longwan would build a safe zone, so I came here. On March 17th of next year, this safe zone will encounter a zombie wave, and the entire safe zone will fall. Lu Jing took the phone with a serious look, and then looked at me with an occupational disease. Song Lan, is the virus related to you? What organization are you? I had expected his reaction. If he believed it easily, it would be abnormal. Lu Jing, you were injured after fighting zombies once. You thought you were infected with the virus, so you locked yourself up, but it turned out to be just an ordinary injury. He told me this in his previous life. He said that he had not told anyone except me. Lu Jing's eyes were surprised, and obviously he didn't tell anyone else in this life. You said you saved a child who looked like Duoduo, and helped her find her parents. You secretly shed tears when you saw their family reunited. I told him everything about my previous life, and my mother-in-law swore that I was a good person, definitely not a bad person. Lu Jing was silent for a while. Our outer fortifications can now withstand missile attacks, and there are satellites monitoring the movement direction of large zombie groups. Logically, the situation you said will not happen. I shook my head. Not enough, far from enough, there are too many of them, and a week before the zombie tide hit, our monitoring satellite was crashed by a foreign Starlink. Song Lan, you are too tired, don't think too much, you are safe now. Lu Jing and my dad don't believe in rebirth. He thinks that the mental tension of this year has caused me to hallucinate. I looked at him seriously. This is not my fantasy, this is all true. You cannot believe me now, but on the day when the Starlink crashes the satellite, you must prepare the safe zone and never leave. Then I didn't say anything else, because my first step was to plant a seed in Lu Jing's heart. Okay, I promise you. Lu Jing agreed, but I know he just wanted to make me feel at ease. On the 365th day of the apocalypse, I became a registrar in the safe zone. Now there are more and more survivors coming to the safe zone, and I met many people I knew in my previous life. Although they don't know me, when I see them standing in front of me alive again, I feel that this life is worth it. Song Yuan occasionally comes to see me. He majored in industry in college, and now he has been transferred from logistics to the weapons production department, which is also a semi-professional counterpart. I finally got in touch with my parents. When they knew we were still alive, they cried and laughed. My mother told me that they would modify the car and come to find us half a month after the apocalypse, but they were stopped by the village party secretary and a group of young people in my hometown, so they failed. If the corpse tide on my side cannot be stopped, the safe zone on my parents' side may also be in trouble. I repeatedly told them to be vigilant. Although everything is distributed in the safe zone now, I still keep the habit of hoarding supplies, and even dig a basement at home. I have to make preparations for both. Lu Jing came back and saw it but didn't say anything. A few days later, I heard that the safe zone was going to start building an underground shelter, and it was Lu Jing who proposed it. His personality is always like this, not saying much, just doing it. M1 I know that the seed I planted has successfully taken root in his heart. Soon I also met Zhang Yu and the captain. Zhang Yu went to the refinery, and the captain and others joined the city defense camp. It is said that they have killed a lot of zombies and are very respected. Sister, I'm really sorry at that time, and I hope you can forgive me. The captain said apologetically. It doesn't matter, it's all in the past. I didn't care about this, because I wanted to use them to carry out the second step of the plan. I suggested to them to clean up and widen the moat to store water. If a large number of zombies come, this can slow down the speed of the zombies attacking the city to a certain extent. The captain may be guilty of me, or think that this idea is useful, and soon took the city defense camp to start action. Because of my outstanding performance at work, I was elected as the main person in charge of the logistics department of the safe zone, leading women and children to carry out production and life. I took advantage of this convenience and often organized everyone to weed and vine at the protective wall to strengthen the wall without any safety hazards. When I stood on the wall and looked at the outside world, I saw a dead silence. May everything grow on this day next year. The 410th day of the end of the world is my 30th birthday. There is no cake in the safe zone, so my mother-in-law cooked eggs for me. Longevity noodles, Song Yuan got 2 cans of beef, Duoduo drew a picture, and Lu Jing forgot. He has been busy rescuing survivors, and we can only see each other once every 3 or 4 days. Sorry, I'll make it up to you after I'm done with this. Lu Jing apologized. I don't care. Being together as a family is the best gift I want. The 448th day of the end of the world, the safe zone captured a few zombies and sent them to the laboratory. I know that this experiment will still fail. Since the beginning of the end of the world, the elites in the field of viruses around the world have been developing vaccines, but the progress has not been very smooth. The safe zone began to encourage population reproduction, because there is hope when there are people. In my last life, I failed to be with Lu Jing because of my poor mental state. I still refused in this life. I will not give birth to another life before the zombie crisis is resolved. Song Yuan came to see me during his break and told me that because of the success of our safe zone, countries around the world are following suit. They also set up safe zones with heavy industrial zones as the center to accommodate survivors, and the effect is remarkable. The world is slowly stabilizing, and countries are beginning to share resources and cooperate. This extreme virus infection has stopped wars and conflicts, and people are beginning to re-examine the world. On the 540th day of the apocalypse, life in our safe zone has matured. The school in the safe zone was rebuilt, and the children began to continue their studies. Duoduo entered the kindergarten, and my mother-in-law also found a job as a nursery teacher in the kindergarten. Everything is on the right track. The 647th day of the apocalypse, New Year's Day, has arrived. There are still 65 days before the zombie tide on March 17th. On this day, the safe zone set off fireworks to celebrate the new year, and people's sadness over the past year was temporarily forgotten in these fireworks. Many people closed their eyes and silently made wishes, and so did I, praying that everything would be safe. But from this day on, I began to suffer from insomnia again. Although Lu Jing now comes back every night, it is still difficult for me to fall asleep. As soon as I close my eyes, all I can see are scenes of zombies biting me. Sometimes I wake up from a dream with cold sweat all over my body. Lu Jing poured me some hot water. Go to the hospital tomorrow and get some tranquilizers. I have a mental illness, and no medicine can cure it. If the safe zone is safe after March 17th, my illness will be cured immediately. The 698th day of the apocalypse, 7 days before the zombie wave. In the middle of the night, Lu Jing received a call, and the other end was talking anxiously, and he immediately sat up from the bed. After hanging up the phone, he looked at me. Our satellite was crashed. Yeah. I responded calmly, but my body still couldn't stop shaking. He lit a cigarette but didn't smoke it. When did the zombie wave arrive on March 17th? 1 hour after you set off, about 10 o'clock in the morning. From which direction? From all directions. He put out the cigarette. You go to sleep, I'll go to the headquarters. He didn't come back for 5 days. I don't know how he explained to the headquarters, but the next morning 4 or 5 planes left the safe zone to conduct reconnaissance. Dozens of planes at noon. The bombers took off with a large number of incendiary bombs, and then kept going back and forth. With such a large-scale cleanup, the zombie tide may not form, and the crisis may be resolved. On the 5th day, the safe zone notified all the elderly, weak women and children to enter the underground defense station, and other young and strong people were on standby. Lu Jing came back that day. He told me that although a lot of zombies had been cleared after 3 consecutive days of bombing, the speed of zombies gathering was too fast, and some would still reach the Longwan safe zone. "How many are there?" I asked him. He looked relaxed. "Not many, don't worry." After eating together in the evening, Duoduo nestled in Lu Jing's arms and asked him to tell a story. Lu Jing held her and told her for a whole hour until the little girl fell into a sweet dream in his arms. He then gently took the child to the bed and covered her with a quilt. My mother-in-law and I packed up and went to the defense. Song Yuan brought a bunch of food and hurried back to the unit. I sent him out, and when we got to the alley, he turned around and looked at me and smiled. "Sister, the red bag contains your favorite coconut candy. I saved my points for a long time to buy it for you. Don't forget to eat it." "I know, be careful on the road." I watched him walk through the long alley and disappear into the night. At night, the moon is like water. Lu Jing was going to the city defense, and before leaving, he suddenly hugged me gently. "Song Lan, I am lucky to meet you in this life, thank you." He is an introverted and calm person, and rarely has such a gentle and affectionate time. I suddenly realized that he and Song Yuan were both saying goodbye to me, and things might be more serious than I thought. In the last life, if Lu Jing and the others were in the safe zone at that time, with his our strength can stop the zombies. And now, judging from the scale of the bombing in the past 3 days, the zombies in the previous life should have been almost cleared, but now Lu Jing is so solemn. Could it be that the scale of the zombies in this life is much larger than that in the previous life? I remembered that the rainy days were delayed and the blizzard days were advanced last year. Did many things change at that time? I felt that I seemed to have done something wrong. I should have kidnapped Lu Jing when I first came to the safe zone, and then my family went to my parents' house, or returned to our home. We grow vegetables on the terrace, and even grow rice and wheat, raise chickens and ducks, and live quietly. I was too greedy and wanted to save everyone. You must come back. I have tried my best in 2 lifetimes to come to you. You can't let me down like this. I hugged him back hard, tears falling down. He moved his lips, but didn't say anything, just looked at me deeply, and finally kissed me on the lips, turned and left. I know he never makes promises he can't keep. March 17th. The 705th day of the end of the world. My mother-in-law, Duoduo, and tens of thousands of women and children hid in the underground shelter. Everyone had worries in their eyes. The volunteers and I were calming everyone down. I told them that the underground shelter had enough supplies and could hold out for a year. Our moat was wide and deep, so it would not be easy for zombies to come over. Even if they did, our walls were strong enough, and we still had tens of thousands of soldiers who were ready to die. At 10 o'clock in the morning, there were bombings and gunshots from the ground. The zombie tide was coming. Everyone was praying silently, praying that the safe zone could survive the disaster smoothly, and praying that those fighting on the ground could survive. I also closed my eyes and prayed. When I opened my eyes, a colorful butterfly landed on my hand. I looked at it and suddenly realized that I had actually changed the world. At this time in the previous life, I and many others had been bitten to death, but now we are all alive, and Lu Jing, who was supposed to take people out of the safe zone, is now fighting with his comrades here. The apocalypse is changing the environment, and I am also changing the apocalypse. Although I am as weak as a butterfly, my flapping wings eventually caused this violent tornado. I listened to the sounds outside. The gunfire and cannon fire were very intense. Since the gunfire did not stop, it meant that the power of human beings was still very strong and was not suppressed by zombies. No one dared to fall asleep. They held their weapons tightly with both hands, ready to fight at any time. On the 3rd day, a loud noise came from the ground, and the earth shook. It seemed that the wall collapsed. I couldn't help but recall the tragic scene after the wall collapsed in the previous life. In less than half a day, the safe zone fell. Wherever the zombies went, there was no life. Time passed by minute, except for the earth-shaking gunfire and cannon fire, no zombies arrived here. The battle did not weaken until the dawn of the 4th day, and then it became extremely quiet. The defense station was also silent. Everyone opened their eyes wide, not knowing whether the zombies won over humans or humans eliminated the zombies. My heart was beating violently, and even Duoduo felt it. "Mom, your heart is beating so fast," Duoduo said. My mother-in-law also held my hand. "Lon, it's okay. No matter what, we are together. Even if it's the road to the underworld, we will walk together." I hugged them tightly. I don't know how long it took. The steel door of the defense station made a deep sound, and the door was opened. A team of exhausted fighters appeared in front of us. "The crisis has been resolved. Let's go home." The crowd got excited, packed up their things, and walked out. We also followed the crowd out of the defense station. The sky was still black at this moment, and the air was full of the smell of gunpowder and burnt meat. The breeze blew, and the air gradually became clear. "Child, do you know the casualties?" "My son is Zhou Kai. Have you seen him?" An old man asked a fighter. The man replied, "I don't know either." "Old man, you go home and wait for news." After listening, I ran quickly towards the protective wall. The tall protective wall stood, but I knew that it would cost a price to defend it. That person couldn't have been unaware of the casualties, he just didn't want to talk about it. In the battle with zombies, there were no injuries, only deaths. I found Song Yuan by the wall. He was slumped on the ammunition box with a dusty face, his clothes were torn and bloody, and he looked like he had fallen a lot. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "Sister, do you believe that I moved more than 500 boxes of ammunition in the past few days? I can't even run 1,500 meters, but I moved so much ammunition. Am I awesome?" My tears fell down, and I peeled a coconut candy he gave me and fed it to him. "Yes, you are the best." This person who called me sister for 23 years used up all his points to exchange food for me that day, and then prepared to die. He chewed candy. "Don't worry about me, I'll just lie down for a while, go find your brother-in-law." "Where is Lu Jing?" Song Yuan pointed forward. "The last time I saw him was in that direction." I looked up and saw that a section of the city wall collapsed not far away, and many people were lying on the ground. When I got closer, I saw that most of them were zombies, and there were also many combatants. I was familiar with the clothes and equipment of these people. They were Lu Jing's elite team. They are always in the most dangerous places, in the last life and in this life. I walked forward slowly, not knowing whether I would meet and separate with him again in this life. The wind blew past my ears, and I stepped forward step by step on the ruins, not knowing what was waiting for me. Suddenly, a hand pulled me, and a hoarse voice sounded beside me, "Don't go over there, that's a restricted area." I was stunned and turned around slowly. The sun had risen from the east, and the warm sunlight illuminated the earth inch by inch. In the backlight, Lu Jing stood in front of me, his eyes were bloodshot, and his chin was a short green beard. He was still alive, with a body covered in gunpowder and dust. "Did we win?" I asked him. He nodded, his chin resting on my forehead. "Yes, we won." "That's good." I hugged him tightly. In my tearful eyes, I saw the butterfly from before fly over and land on his shoulder badge, and then fly around me for a moment, and finally fly away with the wind. The storm caused by the butterfly has stopped, and the despair, worry, and struggle of my two lives finally ended at this moment. This 3-day and 3-night war was later called the Longwan Defense War. On the night of the end of the Defense War, the Longwan Virus Expert Group announced that the antiviral vaccine had achieved initial success. As long as the vaccine was injected, humans would not be infected again after being bitten by zombies. Only then did I know that we were just one step away from success in the previous life. This year, other safe zones also encountered zombies, but because of the protection of vaccines and the experience of Longwan, the safe zones survived safely. Other countries also encountered zombies, and my country did not hesitate to pass on its experience. On the 812th day of the end of the world, the International Virus Expert Group developed a reagent to kill the zombie virus, and humans blew the horn of counterattack. On the 1040th day of the end of the world, humans finally ushered in the final victory. When the door of the safe zone was finally opened, I walked out of this place that protected us for 2 whole years with others. We stood under the vast sky and saw the grass and trees growing vigorously, the flowers and trees blooming beautifully, and the world was regaining its vitality. My wish to stand on the city wall last year has now come true. Mom, I want to go over there to play with Xianxian and the others. Duoduo is now 8 years old and has many good friends. I nodded, go ahead. Lon, I'm going to train first. If you want to go back and rest, call me and I'll pick you up. My mother-in-law joined the square dance team this year. Recently, they are training hard and vowing to win the first place in the competition. Song Yuan is not with us much now. He has a girlfriend. The couple is as sweet as honey and is planning to get married, and Lu Jing is still very busy. I haven't seen him for almost a month. As for me, I touched my bulging belly. I'm already 5 months pregnant. The little guy is a little naughty and kicks me from time to time. I found a place to sit down and watch Duoduo and the others play. After a while, Lu Jing called. What are you doing? He asked. I'm with Duoduo. What about you? Look back. I was stunned for a moment, and looked back. I saw him standing not far away in his ordinary clothes. I don't know when he came back. He came over and sat down next to me, bringing a bag of candied chestnuts that I love to eat. He peeled a candied chestnut for me, and I took a bite. It was as sweet as before the end of the world. I didn't ask him how long he would stay this time, because this moment was like Gu Cheng's poem, the grass is bearing its seeds, the wind is shaking its leaves. None of us spoke, enjoying this leisurely and beautiful time. Dad, you're back. Duoduo ran over and threw herself into his arms and acted coquettishly. Mom and Dad, Xianxian said there is a river here, and there are many beautiful stones by the river. Let's go pick up stones, okay? Okay, let's go now. Lu Jing held Duoduo with one hand and me with the other. There were many families of 4 like us along the way, and laughter filled the riverside with flowers in full bloom. The sadness of the past is gone, and each of us is trying to get out and actively create a new life. The end.